think many of us are looking forward to when we can travel away from home. Perhaps not abroad this year, but there are many beautiful places to visit in the UK. One of my favourite holiday destinations is the Lake District, and David and I have visited many times over the years. We love the countryside and the peace that it affords. I've been there on my own too, sometimes on retreat. On my last visit, I stopped in a lay-by and I watched a shepherd and a sheepdog in the distance in a field. I was fascinated with the teamwork between the shepherd and the dog. The sheep were all rounded up and guided into the pen, and I stayed for about 15 minutes watching the shepherd and his sheep, and the 23rd Psalm came to mind. I was reminded of the changing seasons in the Lake District as autumn slips into winter, and just how hard a shepherd's job is, especially in the winter weather. The countryside can be fairly bleak, and a shepherd must have courage and patience in his task as a protector of his sheep. It's known that many of the Old Testament biblical characters were shepherds, and among them Abraham, Jacob, Amos, and of course one of our most famous psalm writers, David, was a shepherd. He was a shepherd in his boyhood. In chapter 40, verse 11 in the book of Isaiah, we hear, "He will take care of his flock like a shepherd. He will gather the lambs together and carry them in his arms and gently lead their mothers." Indeed, the Bible is full of references to the shepherd and his sheep, and the 23rd Psalm begins with, "The Lord is my shepherd." In Psalm 77, verse 20, it says, "You led your people like a shepherd, with Moses and Aaron in charge." The Psalms express the whole range of human feelings and expressions, from the deepest despair to exuberant joy. They're rooted in particular circumstances, yet they're timeless, and so among the best-loved, most read parts of the Bible. Today, we are stirred by the same emotions. We're puzzled by the same fundamental problems of life as we cry out in need, and we worship the same God as the psalmists of old. We can identify with those psalmists. On a personal level, I find the Psalms a great comfort in times of worry and distress. The 23rd Psalm has brought rest to weary souls for many centuries, and it's presented a message of hope that no writings of men can ever been able to match. I've heard this psalm read at many funerals, and there is the hope that words bring comfort to the bereaved. When David the psalmist wrote the 23rd Psalm, he knew what he was talking about. The words are rich with personal associations. It was the testimony of someone who understood the commitment and the devotion that shepherding required, and in an outpouring of wonder realised that here was an illustration of God's astonishing love for his people. Let's just reflect on the theme of David's psalm. The psalmist begins with the assertion that Jesus Christ is our shepherd, and a reminder that we need him in our lives. We don't go through this earthly life on our own. We have a shepherd who is with us, and that's the central message of the psalm. Our shepherd is there to protect us and will never leave us. Then we look at the words, "I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures and leads me beside quiet waters." Our whole lives seem to be about wanting. We want love, prosperity, good health, and hopefully a long life. But this verse helps us to realise that it's not about what we want, but how we have everything that we need in God. Indeed, he gives us what we need. Our relationship is with him. The love and guidance of our shepherd provides us with what we need and helps us to be satisfied with all the rest. Our good shepherd will lead us to the still waters of refreshment and restoration, to quiet, peace and a sense of spiritual contentment. And it's worth remembering that sheep are led, and we are the sheep of God's pasture. Our shepherd leads us, he goes before us, and he guides us on the right path. Our whole lives long, we should be following Jesus, through the good times as well as the difficult ones, for that is when we need our shepherd the most. And we read, "Even though I go through the deepest darkness, I will not be afraid, for you are with me, Lord. Your shepherd's rod and staff protect me." We all go through dark times when there are valleys of unhappiness and pain and a sense of being lost, unable to see light ahead, and we forget about God's love for us, but God stands beside us in our difficulties. His love is always unfailing. The concluding words of the song: "You prepare a banquet for me, where all my enemies can see me. You welcomed me as an honoured guest, and fill my cup to the brim. I know that your goodness and love will be with me all my life, and your house will be my home for as long as I live." We are God's anointed people. This is the good news. We've been chosen by him to share his table of grace and love. His heavenly banquet has been prepared for us. How amazing is that? When we hear about enemies in this passage, they may not be human enemies. Indeed, we shouldn't have any human enemies. But illness and adversity, declining health, they are often our enemies these days. And God assures us that these enemies will not prevail, and that his love and mercy will follow us in our journey of life. Nothing in life or death can separate us from the love of God, expressed through his Son, Jesus Christ, who truly is our Good Shepherd. Amen.